Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's Abdullah Konte again with another episode. Win Sports here. Wanted to talk a little bit about free agency. We finally got pretty much like the full list of players that are going to be available for the Commanders, or for every team in the NFL. Obviously there was the franchise tag update this past 2 days ago, I guess, yesterday. Essentially giving us an idea of who's actually going to be, hitting the market, testing the market. And so some of them were a surprise, obviously. Alec Pierce hitting free agency was one. I guess it was because they decided to do the transition tag on Daniel Jones. But that was an interesting one. Which I thought the Jalen Phillips one was kind of surprising too, because Philly made the trade to essentially kind of bolstered their D-line last year, I guess, on a run to the championship. It didn't really work out for them in the end. I figured it would be kind of like a long-term kind of idea, and so it's still possible that, he can get signed to Philly for a long term. But I just thought they would probably either, franchise tag him, or at least, make a deal before he actually tests the market. So, but yeah, there's a few of them that's kind of interesting. I mean, another one being Mike Evans, Kenneth Walker, just guys that you kind of thought would actually be, heading back to their same squads. But essentially, I kind of wanted to talk about, what the Commanders' role, or maybe idea of what they would want to tackle at each position, like who's a primary, or at least like a good fit for the Commanders at each position of need, essentially. I picked 8 positions overall for them. And before I wanted to get there, I wanted to talk about 2 guys specifically that, aren't available right now, but that could be available and have ties to this team. Obviously, the first one being Brandon Ayuk. Ayuk is somebody that has ties to Adam Peters, has ties to Jaden Daniels. Everybody knows the story. I don't need to go into too much detail about it. We expect him to get released. I kind of figured they would have like some kind of announcement about it by now. We haven't heard anything yet, but if he does get released, this location here is a primary spot. I don't know how many people want him here when it comes to those who follow this team. Is it a good idea? I'm not quite sure. I think, his mental state is kind of really important to know. Like, is he all about football? Is he not? I don't know. It's been a really weird offseason for Brandon Ayuk. So that would be the first guy. And the next guy is Jonathan Grenard, right? I mean, honestly, out of every person that could be available, that's the guy I'm really hoping gets cut. I think that, his ties with Durante Jones being up there in Minnesota last year, and for what kind of style of defense they're trying to bring, you bring a guy like Jonathan Grenard here, that kind of changes even their thought process going into the next season. I think that he's a guy who can play all 3 downs. He's really good at not only getting sacks, but also stopping the run. He would be the immediate number 1 person that I would be targeting if he became available. So got to keep an eye out on that one. You get a guy like that, your strategy going even into the draft could change a little bit. So that's just 2 guys that aren't available right now that could be available. But I kind of want to go through each kind of team, or each position of need. And like the first one, and kind of going through based upon which I think is like the most important. And I guess all of these are pretty important, but I guess the first one be center. We don't know what they're doing at center specifically. They let go of Tyler Biotish the other day, and there is some rumblings that it might be Coleman, it might be Allegretti, both fighting for that spot. Is it possible that they go and get a guy like Cade Mays, right? Cade Mays, playing for the Carolina Panthers, is hitting free agency. Was a good player. It's something where he's a young guy, 26. It didn't seem like the money was the big reason why they let go of Biotish. It just sounded like maybe they just wanted improvement there. So are they willing to spend some money on a guy like Cade Mays? Connor McGovern is another guy that could be in consideration here, but is that a guy that could actually come in, solidify this offensive line? I'm a little worried. I like Allegretti a lot. I think he's a great depth player. I am concerned, is he good enough to play center and be that number one guy if they decide to go that route? Getting somebody to come in and solidify that would be nice, but they do still have to pay Tunsil, so we'll see what kind of money they have after. Second position for me was safety. The guy that I think could be paired here that would be really good option would be Nick Cross, actually. Nick Cross, who plays for Indianapolis. He's actually from this area, went to UMD, went to DeMatha, from Bowie. If he is wanting to, spread his wings and go somewhere else, this would be a great spot for him. He's only 24 years old. He will be 25 right at the beginning of the season, pretty much. But a really young guy, has played, pretty much every game when he played at Indy, except for one, I think. And started the last 2 seasons as one of their starting safeties. So a guy that is a hard hitter, can move all around. I like Dick Cross a lot. I think he was living like a former 5-star or something. Like he was a high recruit coming out of college. Also, I watched him and covered him while he was at Maryland. So it would be great to see him back over here in the DMV. Other guys that you could consider there, Kobe Bryant is great. For Seattle. More of a free safety. And then Reed Blankenship, I like Reed Blankenship a lot. We've seen him do wonders with against the Commanders plenty in the years that he's played for the Eagles. So I'm actually surprised they're letting him go or letting him test, but it might be time for them. They got a lot of people they got to pay, so they're going to let some people walk. Next position I have is running back, which I think is kind of interesting. I kind of feel like the person that they should be targeting is really Jeremiah Love, to be honest. Like, I think, for what they want to do, they want to be they said, through the grapevine, we heard this notion that they want to find a thumper. They want to find somebody who can really run hard. I think they also are lacking somebody who can catch the ball. So if they're ever going to get somebody, I think it should be somebody like Jeremiah Love. But also, look, if they're really trying to tackle in free agency, I think, getting the guy who's going to be able to be that power back for you would be Kenneth Walker, right? It just makes sense. I think Kenneth Walker is probably the best power back, probably the best back that is available. I think Breece Hall would have been that number one guy if they didn't tag him in New York. But I also think that they should consider somebody like Travis Etienne because he is somebody who can catch out of the backfield. Kenneth Gainwell is another guy who can catch out of the backfield, but he can't do it all. I think Travis Etienne gives you the variety of options, but they really want to find somebody kind of like that David Montgomery for Bill possibly, and if they're not going to get Jeremiah Love, that might be the 2-back system they'll have with K9 and Bill. So I think that might be the best fit for them at running back. The next position that I wanted to talk about was tight end. And there is some rumblings that they're going to run it back with the tight ends that they have already. I think that's a bad idea. I don't think that they have anybody who can really spread the field, who really is a matchup mismatch for linebackers and safeties. Like, you need a guy like Isaiah Likely, who would be my choice, to be able to get in there and be a matchup nightmare. Somebody who's going to be able to catch the ball. I understand that being able to block is really important. I'm not sure how great he is as a blocker, but if they don't bring Ertz back, and I think bringing Ertz back would probably be a mistake just because he's older and he's coming from a really strong injury. To me, finding somebody who's really going to be able to attack the middle of the field is just a really, really important part to a play action type offense that they're trying to move to, a run style play action type offense. A tight end is a guy's best friend, and I think Sinnott as an H-back is going to be great. I just don't know how great Sinnott is as an actual tight end. So, move him to H-back, fullback, make him into like a Kyle Juszczyk, and then bring in a legit tight end would be the way to go, in my opinion. So, at linebacker, You know, I don't think they're gonna bring back Bobby. There just hasn't been any real traction in regards to bringing back Bobby. I think they would have done it by now if they were. Uh, you know, I like Nakobe Dean, man. I think Nakobe Dean is somebody who's like a leader. You know, I think the biggest thing is that if you're gonna lose a guy like Bobby, you need somebody else who's gonna come and like lead this team. You know, somebody that you feel comfortable giving that green dot to. I feel like Nakobe Dean has all the leadership characteristics, and I think he's a guy who flies all over the ball. I think he's a great, you know, addition to this team. I think, you know, if they were to wait till the draft and go for somebody like Sonny Styles, that would be great. But now that we're looking, it sounds like Sonny Styles might not be there. So I think somebody who's going to be able to lead this team, it's great. I think Devin Lloyd would be also a good option. I think he might just be too expensive. I think the same you could say for Quay Walker. I think my biggest concern with Quay Walker is maybe his coverage ability, and I think that's obviously a concern based upon all the people who were unhappy about Bobby's play last year. So my choice would be Nakobe Dean at that spot. For corner, I feel like we hear that they want to go big at corner. I love Alontae Taylor, but I don't know if that's the guy. I think a guy that could really fit here is Cordell Flott, the Giants corner, and he was actually pretty good. They could probably get him at a good price point. 6'2", long, rangy kind of guy. He's just really thin. You know, kind of gives me a little Forbes PTSD. So if it's not him, I would also say Reek Woolen. I love Reek Woolen. That would be my number one if they were going after somebody. I don't know. Some people feel like Reek Woolen is like hit or miss, but that would be my number one guy. If you really want to get a guy who's like a starting safety type person, Reek Woolen would be my guy. Can you imagine having two long type corners on both sides of the ball with Trey Abos and Reek Woolen? That just sounds incredible to me. So would be interested to see if that's the way they go about it. At wide receiver, we've heard, obviously, I talked about Ayuk earlier. Alec Pierce being available is crazy. He's going to get a lot of money, you know, and they still might make a deal with him. He seems like he's getting frustrated about the fact that they haven't done it already. I think Michael Pittman might be available too. If he does get a deal, they might have to release Pittman to make a deal with Pierce. But I like Pierce a lot. I think he's a big guy. He can run, a huge deep threat. I think whoever you bring in would be a great deep threat and red zone threat, which is why the guy that I actually feel like makes sense is actually somebody who's been, you know, they've been talking a lot about recently, and that's Mike Evans. You know, if they can get Mike Evans on a pretty relatively cheaper deal, he would be great because it gives that deep threat as well as that red zone threat that Jaden just doesn't have. He doesn't have like a big receiver. Treylon Burks maybe is like the biggest receiver, and the only guy who would just go up and get it. I think Terry can go up a little bit, but like, you know, there's no one that you just are like, hey, 50-50 ball, just throw it up to him. He's going to get it every time. It would be nice to get somebody like that. So I understand the notion of trying to get somebody like Mike Evans. And then DN, man, let's talk about it. To be honest, the DN market is actually much better than I thought it was going to be. I thought a lot of these guys would get re-signed or that wouldn't be available. I mean, you have people like Boye Mafe, Trey Hendrickson, Jalen Phillips, Edabike, or the dude from Atlanta is another good one, another underrated player. The one that I cannot believe is available, and it's the one that I think that they should go after if they weren't able to get Jonathan Grenard, if he gets cut or whatever, is Adafwe Owe. I mean, I can't believe that they didn't re-sign him in LA. I thought that he was for sure going to go back there. There is a possibility he goes to Mike McDonald in Seattle because he has a relationship up there, but that would be probably one of the number one guys I'd be targeting. Like, it's very apparent that DN is the strongest position of need for this team. I think that you could, some people are going to just say, hey, just draft one of the DNs in the draft. Well, one, maybe all three of the highly coveted DNs in that first 10 spots is gone. And even if it's not, I honestly think that you could get a guy in free agency and draft a guy that would fall to you if that's a Ruben Bain, if you like him the most, because I think they really do need a lot of help at edge, really, and young help, right? So I think the biggest thing for me is that all these guys that I mentioned are pretty much under 27. I think the only one that is above that is Spike Evans. They need to go younger. They have the money. They say they said they're going to go with fireworks this year. They're going to spend money. They're going to get aggressive. I don't know exactly what that means, but if this is what they want to do, these are the guys that they should be considering. And it's a good market, man. Like, I mean, these are all players off the list. And let me see where I can find this list that I saw was the top 100 players of top 100 players is a Matt Bowen list, ranking the top 100 players of free agency. He has Trey Hendrickson number one. We're hearing that he might want to go to Tampa, but obviously he's somebody you can consider. But essentially, there's some guys here, they really need to make a splash. With the lack of draft picks, they got to really make a move here. And so that's my take, man. I mean, honestly, if it's up to me, these are the guys that I would be kind of going after. But there's plenty on this list, and there's plenty that aren't on this list that are going to be quality players. So we'll see what they do. We know that, he doesn't love to, we know that AP doesn't love to spend. So, I tried to find guys that maybe, are on the cheaper end, or at least that would be, smart deals. But at the same time, like, he needs to spend big somewhere, and if it's going to be somewhere, it probably makes sense for it to be D end and maybe tight end. But they still do have to draft. They'll try to get better and younger through that, but we'll see what happens. So let's keep praying for Jonathan Grenard to get cut. That's my number one thing that I want right now. I'm not going to lie. It doesn't mean that he's going to come here if he does get cut, but I think it'll be a higher chance that he comes here than any other team. And he just is a dynamic player. So let me know what you guys think. If there's a player that you think that they should go for, hit me. Obviously, reply in the comments, let us know. Thank you for your time, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, peace.